All right. So wait a minute. All right. So in this video, I'm gonna have a 10 minutes speaking about it. Yeah, just 10 minutes speaking. Okay, so let's start it because I don't want to waste too much time on it. So just do it as fast as I can so I can relax. I'm gonna go here. We go here. Right, it's pretty perfect, right? So I have to wait for a little second, watch the ad, and then I can do my work. Okay. Um. um all right. Good. Let's start it. Let's say you are public speaking, right? So you're about to go down on stage and you feel anxiety. The the usual, the default state of someone who doesn't want to have experience is just to figure out this one. In France, worry about. I mean, anxiety is categorized just by mere thought of what you have to do. Then, once you feel the butterflies, you you work with them, right? You contract your mind contracts around it. Your position with yourself is an unhappy one. It's like, why am I this person who just like can see the people who do it all the time? They are relaxed. I'm unhappy. When it may end, you're talking to yourself. You're not noticing it because your thoughts just come up behind you fast as they can, and they seem to be you, right? You identify with each thought that emerged in consciousness, and most people live their lives as thought there's no alternative. We're not given a rule book for how to operate the human mind, right? And there's no place in the normal the education where we are. This is even indicated as an alternative here, and so we get kind of stumble out into the adulthood. More or less assuming that we always have the might, we have the release there's the only thing we can do to really upgrade our firmware is to add new content. We can add books, we can develop interest, but there's nothing at the start group level of emotion and cognitive life that can change. If feeling anxiety, there's actually a place from which you can just feel it, right? And the and be actually indifferent to it or anything else. You could be feeling, I mean, just not that you have been even an unpleasant sensation, but to anxiety is even the unpleasant is so close to excitement, and it's actual physiology. And really, the difference between excitement and anxiety is more or less just the framing. It's just the story you tell yourself. You felt these tingles and this solitude and readiness to respond right before you know you're about to go on a roller coaster. That's the part why you're going to a roller coaster. You're experience. Not the fact that you feel that the way when you're about to have an interview, when you're about to walk on the stage. As hearing back and realizing the power of family is again is this skill that it is a fairly elastic. Not many people learning it. This grows out. Most of what people care about can be taught as a skill. Well-being is a skill, not suffering. Necessary is a skill. Noticing your emotional life and recognize the emotion is a skill. When you begin practicing mindfulness, which is just learning to pay close attention to the nature of your experience. Not in anything you experience, you just let it like to be your moment to moment. In a way that's not reactive. You're not grasping the economy, business approaching, unpleasant way, just the great story of telling yourself story you're thinking. And you can either become more and more mindful if that interrupt that more you can reframe this continually and tell yourself a better story, or you can actually just engineer. You can change the code that you're running moment to moment. You sort of use a negative imagination where you think of all of the bad things that haven't happened to you. Still, you're just stuck in traffic driving to the job that you don't like, and and you're frustrated. You can think of all the things that have happened to you, right? That haven't. Depending one of them happened to you will consider your prayers answered if you could just be returned to this moment. You could be the guy who today is going to find out you've got 2 months left, right? And you have to the next 2 months just spend just unwinding your worldly affairs. You're not guy, right? You haven't happened to you yet. It's just more thinking, but they have a profound effect. You can reframe your experience in a way that doesn't actually change anything material about your circumstance. You can let the light in. Let me take techniques like that just a matter of invoking useful concepts skillfully. So picture this, you're in an airplane and you can listen to bounce. And even if those boys who aren't especially afraid to fly can feel anxious and insignificant turbulence. Why do you feel anxious? Well, you have some thoughts that turbulence might be dangerous, right? That it makes it more likely the plane will crash. And of course, surely significant turbulence can cause a plane to crash. Because we know from the statistics of plane crashes, it's a very, very rare thing. So now, unless you are in that rare and horrible experience of being actually thrown around the cabin so as to get injured, it's very likely that the bouncing is not physically painful, and it is not being harmed by the sensation. And in other contexts, you should check yourself to even more violent bouncing and not to be worried about whether or you might go on some ride and amusement park which is short greater force on you bodily, and you do it because you're seeking experience out. Now an airplane is totally unwelcome to you, but if you just take raw sensations, they're not your problem. You must pretend. It's your interpretation of them that worries you. There are at least two levels that what you can deal with is first is to think conceptually about the nature of problems and about your to feel. Is it rational to worry that your plane will crash if you're experiencing a turbulence? No, it actually isn't. The likelihood of dying in a plane crash is minuscule over the course of your journey. You should begin to worry as you leave the airport and get in a Uber or taxi or drive yourself home in your own car. So, if you understand that, if you understand that every moment in the plane is in fact safer than any moment you spend on the ground, certainly safer than when you are walking as a pedestrian fixated on your muscle and stepping into the crosswalk. Thus, when your adrenaline so surge, those are the moments where the sweat should begin beating off on your forehead. So when you're in plane, it's begun to bounce. It's in fact unreasonable to worry that the bouncing means much of anything. If you understand that, that actually can have an effect. You can become willing to just experience raw sensations of turbulence. Then you can cease to interpret the experience as a sign of actual danger. The level which you can address is this, and these are totally compatible moves. I recommend both of them. Is to become mindful of the feeling of anxiety itself. What is it? And what does it mean? Well, it's just sensation, just a pattern of energy in your body, and it actually doesn't mean anything at the level of raw sensation. You may have thought about it and relying much of your thinking in the moment it prepares toward figure out how it's not to feel that way, not to let it worse. Just you step out of your thoughts and just become willing to feel the raw sensation of anxiety, and you just surrender your system to it. Just feel it as energy. Because it loses its meaning, it can become very difficult to distinguish from but under another framing to maybe unpositive experience like excitement. How do you know the difference between being anxious about something that's about to happen and being excited for the most part is thoughts or thinking when you're feeling that arousal? That's a cognitive conceptual overlay on top of this raw feeling. You can constantly reframe the things or you can step out of it altogether and you just feel the raw energy of this experience. And when you do that, anxiety can be like any other experience that has no meaning for you as a person. Really doesn't say anything about you. So let's say you have rash on your elbow and it's itching. Okay, that doesn't say anything deep about you. As a person that has no physiological implications that might be unpleasant, it might be actually unpleasant, but doesn't reach into your sense of who you are. Deepest way to respond to anxiety. And again, I'm not saying that there's no case in which drugs are valuable or even necessary. There may be well be, but for anxiety, it's in its more ordinary range. The deep way to respond to is to become willing to feel it, to cease to interpret it as important and to function in the midst of it, and then it will pass. Anxiety rises and falls like any other emotion, and you're not continually thinking thoughts that make you anxious. So they can't stay around you. So every long this is true of other unpleasant emotions like anger and sadness. They continually resorted over our thoughts, and we're spending most of our time thinking without knowing that we're thinking. So mindfulness in particular is a very good antidote to this problem. The trick is you can apply it as an antidote. You can be mindfulness or anxiety so that it will go away. Become willing to feel it, just let it burn bright in you, and discover that it doesn't matter. It simply comes and goes, and you can functional. Okay, so I think that this is the end of my video for today. Okay, so bye guys, have a good